There we go. So I'm going to share a screen, but it's not going to be all screen. We're going to come back in and have some discussion around some of these things. So let me share. So good evening and welcome. Usual Zoom etiquette, you all know how to do it, so I'm not going to go through it. Creativity is intelligence having fun. And I think some of the clubs need some creativity. So let's have some fun as we do it. And really, we talked before that, effectively we're the support team helping clubs move forward to the future, hopefully not in darkness, but perhaps we can provide some enlightenment as we go along. That's our role. We're here to support the clubs moving forward. So what I was thinking of doing, I've pulled together from what was in the Warwick things, and I looked at, they've got three different sessions depending if you're a first year assistant governor, a second, or a third. So there's what makes a great assistant governor. I thought we'd look at first. Look at club assemblies, although someone tells me I'm going to put this in the wrong order. No, maybe not. Look at area presidents meetings and meetings with presidents. And then we're going to have a break. And then I've got a scenario for discussion that things that might arise in a club. So I've picked one scenario. And then characteristics of strong clubs. And we'll look at some dates for 22, 23. And there's a request to explain the Zoom allocations and how they work. So if that's it, a couple of things we talked of when we're sharing with clubs is what we were going to be looking at for the year. Obviously it's Imagine Rotary, and I'm going to use the Imagine Rotary when we come through to assembly as well, and how we can look at obviously increasing members, end polio, tackling COVID, large projects, looking at that. And obviously with the district side on it, we looked at our key priorities, because at the end of the day, everything else relies on these priorities. If we don't have the people, we're not going to be doing very much. And if we don't have the right public image, we're certainly not going to have people. And if we don't contribute to foundation, well, we're kind of struggling a little bit. So everything else really builds off that. It doesn't stop us doing everything else, but that's the key focus going forward. And in terms of the plan, the high-level plan built off the RI plan, the Britain and Ireland plan, and this is what we showed you when we looked at the district officers session. So increasing our impact about making sure we actually finish the polio story, and improve our ability to achieve and measure. But obviously with participant engagement, helping clubs to better engage their members, which is kind of part of tonight as well. Grow and diversify our membership, number one. And I must remember and come back and talk about what we're looking at in terms of growing membership, creating new channels. In fact, I'll just talk about the membership one just now. What we're looking at the moment is obviously three strands. There's growing members in the current clubs and helping the clubs to avoid losing members, and then new clubs going forward. So there's three different strands. And in the new club side of it for awareness, we've got a district online club, which has currently got 16 potential people. And more we'll hear about that shortly. And we're about to start something in Kirkcaldy to move that forward. Kirkcaldy's got a big population. It's had 2 clubs, it's dropped a club, it's had 2 clubs again. and we really believe we can make that work. So lots going on in there. And then I think we'll probably focus on Dundee next after that. Dundee has got 3 times the population of Inverness and has got less clubs, so less of an offering. But that doesn't take away from clubs increasing what they do, and obviously keeping people so we're not a revolving door, as I've heard it said, for people coming in and leaving again. So here's something I took out of one of the leaflets from, or the training sessions. What I did, I got the leaders from Warwick to actually send me up the syllabus for the years 1, the years 2, and the years 3. And I've just pulled out this piece out of it, kind of main areas of responsibility. Now, you can read that as fast as I can say it, so it seems a bit, I'll let you go through that. What's missing in that, if anything?
From my point of view, I think the training part needs to be aiding and developing others rather than training.
Yeah, and part of that is when we did the Presidents-elect, we called it Presidents-elect preparation. But I think I kind of might stay with training, but I'm not sure. Thinking of new secretaries, new treasurers, people new in post, and creating the support that they need. What others think?
I guess the thing is that you're right, there's that training, but we're probably, the AGs are probably not so directly involved in delivering of that training in terms of that. So I can kind of see where John's coming from. It's more, you know, if somebody came to me with a really technical secretarial question, I probably would go into the technical secretary who knows everything.
Absolutely.
Likewise the treasurer. So I guess it's about that connection piece.
Yeah, so I guess it's guiding them where to go and find out the information, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Ken. I think that's where the AGs need to be linked with the team leaders as well.
Yeah.
From the point of view of knowing which of the team leaders is doing what and how they're doing it.
Yeah,
and having that conversation initially, it's almost like speaking to the club and saying, I'll go and find out and get somebody to contact you, and do it that way, or taking an interest and carrying it through so that you've got that awareness yourself as you're moving forward. Yeah,
you're quite quiet, John. I did hear it. But you're,
sorry.
Strangely. So, yeah, absolutely. And part of that, when you're maybe when the Presidents-elect is in finding out what they need for support and inviting the team leaders along for that, and creating that kind of knowledge building where they need that. So that's the kind of main areas. Is there anything missing in that? Anything you would add? And again, problem solving, Carol, you're right. That's the kind of same thing. You might not know, but you know the person that does know.
I always say this job's a bit like being a general practitioner, a GP. You don't need to know everything, but if you know somebody who does, I think you're more than halfway there in terms of the support. Or you've got a good tongue in your head if you've got to this role and you know how to ask somebody.
Yeah.
The only other thing
it sort of seems a bit passive to me. Yeah, it's a good list of things to do, but maybe it's just me, but I think there's something about motivating, enthusing.
So we'll come back on to that.
Maybe you're coming on to the how.
Yeah, well, we'll come. I'm sure I've got those words somewhere, and if not, we'll make sure they're added in. And we'll share this presentation afterwards. So what makes a great AG? I'm going to put things up here, and then we'll stop and just have a discussion around them. Obviously, communication and listening, and the ability to challenge in a non-threatening way is interesting. Knowledge, or the knowledge of where to go and get information, and obviously your approach. There's the word for you, Paul. The motivator, the enabler, the finding out how they can find things out. And obviously, and just in the title, as assistant governors, ways of working together as a team with the clubs and how we can support them and our programs for the year, and also managing any challenges. But if I stopped there and said, if we just took, what about the skills one or knowledge one? No, let's take skills in your approach. What do you think could help in there? How do you think you could tackle things like that?
Can I just change the subject slightly and go talent spotting?
Go on then.
I think you could only do talent spotting if you are doing well, very frequent visits to a particular club where you can identify somebody. But I mean, if you're only meeting a club, say once every 12 weeks, 3 times a year, you're not going to identify anyone without maybe a club president coming forward saying, you pose a question and they come forward and say, look, there's so-and-so, we do think he or she could be a suitable candidate for you.
Mm-hmm. What do others think?
Possibly if somebody's enthusiastic enough, they could be taught, and that's the people you want to grasp a hold of.
Yeah. And people wouldn't quite often just step forward themselves. Sometimes they need, so who would be good at this? Or what other people think?
I think so often we pick it up. You'll pick it up from speaking to the area presidents. You're right. You want to be in amongst the clubs, James, on a really regular basis. But you'll hear as you're speaking to the clubs, or you'll see things that they're doing, and you'll be able to pick up who the doers are, who's interested, who's engaged in terms of that element of it. That's probably the indirect way, and it's probably how most of us ended up with our shoulder being tapped in some way, shape, or form. Often through the presidential year, you know, and what they're going to do in the post-presidential aspect of it is often a good one as well.
Yeah. What other people think?
I'd agree with that. I think yeah, you could probably get the vibe sort of from just talking to folk and maybe seeing what they're saying, what they're doing. I'm not maybe a wee bit uncomfortable with the phrase talent spotting. I don't know. I think I know what it means, but I guess it's whether it's succession planning or something like that. I'm just sort of thinking it maybe has other connotations that are maybe not appropriate. But
and I think it's all around so who's going to be the next youth, or who's going to come after Brian Stewart as governor that we should start supporting, coaching, who's going to be, what about the web mentor, for example? And club assemblies could help that. Who's shining in the club assemblies, for example? You'll soon see them for sure. What do others think on that?
I think it's really getting a lot of contact to the clubs, because quite often you'll go along and the big mouths are not always the ones that you want, the ones that jump up and down and say, "Oh, Mr. Wonderful." There's probably somebody in the background much more competent to do the job, and you need to find out about those. And again, as you have done, Ken, but not everybody does, ask people. I see, particularly my own club, people, they stand there, who wants to be this? And everybody sits there and goes, no. If you ask people, they'll go, oh, yes. Yeah. That's my experience as a president. If you ask people personally away from the cronies, they'll join in.
Sure.
I have to agree. I agree with Celia for that, because that's the way that our club works as well. When you talk to the club as a whole, you very rarely get an answer. But if you have a conversation, a coffee, a catch up, that makes a big difference usually. And just setting some background to it as well. It's like Carol's saying there's about being an AG. It's a great job, but it's that first step of going through the door and building your own confidence as well as you're moving forward. A year ago, I would never have thought I would be in the position I am with district, because I certainly haven't had no intention of being in learning or development. That's not my background at all. But I've kind of enjoyed it. The Zoom's helped a little bit. It makes life a lot easier with the lack of traveling, which means we can have meetings like this on fairly short notice. But obviously, longer notice is better for you to be able to have your life and make sure that you have your own social life as well. What you don't want to be is 110% Rotary and forget about your own world and your own family, because that's more important by far.
One of the other things that was on that list was the relationship with DG and the team working together. Obviously, I'm particularly keen on visiting clubs. I'm also conscious Heather's really just still finishing off some of that. So what's the thoughts on timing of visits, given where Heather is in her year? But we also know that some clubs need extra support probably now, and some don't. What are the thoughts on there?
I think more of the rural clubs are in definitely need of support as opposed to the city ones.
Okay, I'll share something after that, maybe not. Depends on the cities, of course. So I'm going to be unkind here, and Ranald's not on, but Praveen, this is one for Praveen, I'll see. And I mentioned Dundee. Why did I mention Dundee? They've lost 2 clubs in the last 4 or 5 years, and their numbers are down. So Dundee itself was in the 90s of members, and they're currently in the 50s. And that's in a space of 4 years or so, I think. So you're right. There's different clubs will be in different places, James, is kind of what I'm saying. So a lot of the rural clubs are spot on, but there's some not as well, and vice versa for some of the cities. And I think part of that in the assembly, and we'll come on to the assembly later on, is I'd like to prioritise the clubs that are needing most support early in the year with you. How's it been, Carol, for organising visits this year with Heather?
Not bad. I mean, we were kind of conscious. We've just kind of finished the majority of the Area 2 ones. They are just the last fortnight ago, and that is probably as much about being able just to get that opportunity in her diary, and also being mindful of the winter months.
Sure.
Just kind of getting her from where she is up to the Heelans. It's not always that easy to be guaranteed with decent weather. I mean, it's as well she wasn't here the day with the snow. But you know, so it's a bit of practicality in terms of that element of it. But she had initially extended an invite to do Area 1 and Area 2 earlier on in the year, and she did Area 1. But we thought the geography of Area 1 just made it would be better to let her focus there, and then we picked up hours later on. But the guys have always known that if there was anything in particular, if they wanted a visit virtually or in reality, you know, we would have done our best. And she's also still got events she's going to come back up to an area between now and the end of the Rotary year. She's still expect to see her at 3 different events minimum between now and the end of the year. So I think it's just about building the continuity and the need, and that's often the thing. Because sometimes if you ask a club if they want to see the DG, you get a lot of blank faces. So sometimes needs a little bit of encouragement. Again, like everything, just the way we ask it or the way we do it.
And I'll pick that up again under the scenarios. The scenario I've picked just covers some of that, the blank look and the club's faces or something when that comes up. What concerns you on the knowledge side of things, if anything? Everybody happy, know where they can find things?
Depending on the type of question you're being faced with.
Sure. So what kind of things would concern you, James? What kind of topics might and that's being very presumptuous that there's something.
Well, there's not really a great deal. I think I could answer or direct people into the right area.
Okay.
But from a personal point of view, and I've said this to you before, my lack of computer skills is a problem for me to try and get to try and overcome.
And we can sort basics with you on that. That's for sure, to get that going.
Well, I'm not saying I'm poor, but I mean, I know from the time I learned about computing and all that sort of thing, things have changed totally beyond recognition, and I just haven't had contact with all the modern developments in computing, and this is where I struggle.
I still remember at the union playing with a ticker tape and punching out the programs. I'm sure the banks are still there, are they? What's on?
Some may be, but we have moved on from that. Ken. But honestly, James, if I can cope with technical skills, that's not going to be an issue, because I'm not the most technically minded. So don't worry, we'll overcome that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are people around about me that can assist where I need. But this is my major concern, as being an AG. Just like what I said before everyone joined, you know, about Appendix B tonight.
So we'll cover Appendix.
No. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, you know.
Sure. And the good thing is,
to highlight that.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for doing that. And we'll make sure we cover it for you. Anything else on that? On what might make a great AG? Anything that says, I wonder if.
So I think going back to knowledge, it's always you've got to keep up with what information, and communication is the main thing. And whatever you send us, we need to read. We need to know what's going on, and sometimes that hasn't been quite followed up. And it's the same in business. You'll get a question that you don't know, so you can prepare as much as you want, but somebody will say, "What about this?" And as long as you tell them, "I will come back to you tomorrow at 10 o'clock and let you know," that's fine.
And that's a very valuable point. As, if you can't come back immediately, just go back to people and say, "Look, I'll come back to you by X, Y, Z." And don't leave a black hole with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people will get frustrated, and I think that's been a problem we've had in the past that's turned some of the clubs off. That the district's not responded to whatever. So, okay. So if we start thinking about a club assembly, what's the purpose of a club assembly? Who would want to share something on that? And then I've got something written down, but I didn't put it on a slide, but we'll cover it. What's in a club assembly? What's the purpose of it?
Your club expectations for the forthcoming year.
Yeah. And all aspects, really, eh?
Mm.
Okay. So at the club assembly, I've got just a couple of things on that. We'll send out just after this what you should be expected to hear, or what you could expect to hear, and the clubs may or may not cover it. And I've got a sheet for you which will circulate after, and you can send that out to the presidents and say, if you could make sure you cover these items. So let me just go back onto that PowerPoint a second. Right, here we go. So some of the things you might ask them, and these are just the headings that's on that one page that clubs should cover, is obviously growing Rotary or membership. And you can read this as fast as you read a lot faster than I can say it. Big thing that people don't do is putting things on Rotary Club Central or using Rotary Club Central. It's in the middle. And that's quite a valuable thing for clubs. And some of the clubs think this is Big Brother watching, and it's not. It's there to help the clubs. Because if they actually put things in at the beginning of the year, what they're going to do in each of these areas, it'll actually.
Ken, can I interrupt a second? I'm not seeing anything on my screen. I don't know if anybody else is.
No, you haven't shared the screen.
Right, hold a second.
I was just concerned about saying it and feeling silly because not everybody else has seen it.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes.
I'm not going to start again, obviously. Yeah, so we're talking about Rotary Club Central on there. And if clubs want to get a presidential citation, and why not? If they're using Rotary Club Central, the presidential citation, I think for next year is going to be much the same as this year. There's, I think, 25 activities, and all they need to do is 13, and they'll get a presidential citation. And from memory, Alloa got the Star Award, whatever it was, Celia, last year, was it?
We always do.
Yeah.
We start at the beginning of the year with what do you need to do with a presidential citation. That starts at the assembly,
Yeah.
and we work to it. And then if we get to April and we think, oh, we've missed something, we do a quick event.
Yeah.
We work through the year with the citation requirements. We always have done.
And it's up to the clubs to define what they want to do out of that 25 activities.
Yeah.
So they would put down, for example, by the end of the year, we would expect to have X members and then work towards it. Or we're going to get involved in whatever in the local community and do X amount of hours or whatever in that. So when you're at the club, and the clubs will quite often, and I know a lot of the clubs will actually give you a presentation, or they'll give you a written report, and you should ask for a written report. And if they do it in the form of a presentation, that's fine because it covers things. So some of the things to do at the club is obviously listen, engage members and inform about district. But if there's things that are missing or things that are weaker, again, the knowledge that you have will help you suggest things for them. Quite interesting, one of the clubs I was at as an assembly when I was an AG didn't contribute to polio. And we challenged them why, but apparently they just didn't play with that one at all. But what if they're obviously struggling? And I'll come on to just something on what if people are struggling. Anything missing in that, do you think? And obviously the motivating bit, that's all right. Engaged members should also be recognizing and motivating for their efforts and their plans, and motivating for the future and for the year, and encouraging them to success for the year. Anything missing in that lot?
I think they need to ask what they want from district. It's a two-way thing.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Because you can inform them about district. Inform about district, you're right, Celia, should be, we're here to help you. We've got no other task in life but to help you as a club. So what can we do? Where is the help we can bring? And that kind of comes out in the support in weaker areas as well, perhaps. Anything else? So the form that we'll give you to send out to your presidents, when you've been there, as far as district's concerned, really we understand what's there because we'll see the report that comes back from the clubs. You'll get that and just forward it on. But obviously the key thing we're interested in is the plan credible? Have they put thought into it? key for us is the club sustainable and does it need help? As your view, and obviously the club, if, as Celia says, if they're asking for help or offering for help, so what support does it need, and what do you need from the other team leaders to work with that club? And part of that is when we come to looking at visiting clubs, we can bring that kind of support with us. And do their membership, public image and foundation plans seem credible? So really we're just looking at where can we offer the key support for them. Anything missing? I'm just going to stop sharing that a second. What's your thoughts on that? Does that cover it?
I think it covers it, but I guess one thing that was in my mind was it's almost like, what's the corporate memory? It's like each year that this happens. So yeah, I guess I'm coming into this new. So speaking with sort of Alistair and Julian, I can get that, but I'm just wondering, sort of how we keep that corporate memory about sort of, well, last year the club was doing great guns, and then this year it's not, or it's changed around, or just almost like the same theme. So we aren't reinventing the wheel. So it's probably more an open question. I don't know whether there's a repository somewhere where I can go and find stuff from previous years, or whether it's really, in my case, talking to Julian and Alistair. Yeah, and I think Julian and Alistair, and obviously Jim knows a lot about some of the clubs that you've got as well. And that's part of why the AGs get 3 years as well, to get that continuity. But for sure, speak to the current AGs that have got the clubs and find out what's been happening and what the concerns they have. And, oh, this is a great club, you can leave them alone. But when you listen to their assembly, you'll hear things. Praveen, you were trying to come in.
I was just going to say what Paul had said, just to extend that point. And one of the things is that some of the clubs, it's difficult to know whether they recognize that they are actually in trouble and they are actually declining. And for that kind of club, and with members who've been in the Rotary for eons, and when new AG goes in, they would feel the same as what Paul suggested. Somebody coming from the corporate visit kind of thing. Sure. And whatever we suggest or identify that there are problems, it might be just looking as some sort of condescending.
No, well, there's a couple of things in there, Praveen. The Rotary Club Central is very good at giving you some of the history on what they've been doing, especially if they've been using Rotary Club Central. In terms of the reports, which you don't get access to reports, and this is the silliest thing on this planet. You don't actually get access to the reports until the 1st of July. But the current AGs, or myself, or Kath, or Jim and Brian, I believe, can all run reports. So they could run membership reports for the last 5 years for clubs for you quite easily. So you can see if there's been any trends in that. And you can see, for example, how many recruits they've had, how many they've lost, for example. And it's also possible to get things that said, have they lost a lot of people in the first couple of years of them being a member? The sad statistic is we probably lose in the first 3 years half of the new members, as just a global picture, as a kind of rule of thumb. What do other people think?
I think this year's assemblies are going to be quite difficult because of COVID over the last 2 years. And I think the priority from my point of view is to stabilize these clubs again without being too adventurous with big projects. Get a sound foundation and then take it from there.
Mm-hmm. What do others think?
think it's maybe one of the easier ways to actually come in for the new AGs coming in, because obviously many of the clubs have not had the opportunity to do the service that they might have wanted to have done previously. Now, that's not them all, because some clubs have been extremely busy and you'll know those as you're going into it, but that's why recognise the past. But for me, it's about look to what their future plans are and praise on the future plans and encourage on the future plans, and what's the support you need going forward. We can't change what's happened. So the history of what they've done in the last 2 years, we can acknowledge and recognise, and you'll pick that up. You know, if they've been busy, if they've done fundraising for Ukraine, whatever it may be, you might want to recognise in terms of that. But for me, I would be saying focus on picking up on what James said. Well done in getting through the last 24 months and build and go forward. And I think that's the kind of encouragement that we can give them, and find out where they need the support from that point of view.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Ken, can I just say something else that I find, just on my background as being a president, when the president writes a report, what they don't and the club don't want to hear is that report read back to them. When you're doing a thing, just the AG running through the report bit by bit, saying exactly what the president has said.
Yeah.
I think you have to change it into your own words and support in your own way and be yourselves. And that'll come over 100 times better than just going, yeah, you're doing really well, and I think your ideas are good. I think just put your own spin on it and be yourselves. I think that's the best you can be for a club. Thank you.
I'm going to expand on that a second. If a club, how you phrase this is difficult and it's not easy, but if their plans are not up to it, you need to be honest with them, but in an encouraging kind of way, and saying, would it be better if, or could you think about looking at that? And again, without being in this group, I can say things like this. We recruit a lot of people in a year, so we can recruit people, but we don't necessarily keep them. But I agree with James. I think we always, over the last 6 years, have lost more members than join. If we hadn't lost anybody, I think it's in the last 5 years, we'd have over 4,000. And that excludes anybody who's gone to higher service or anything like that, because I took that out of the equation. That's a phenomenal number. We're sitting at 2-3 just now, and goodness knows where it'll be. So clubs can do it. Clubs have done it very well. So give them encouragement in that. What do you think on the need for change in clubs? If clubs are struggling, how can we support them?
One of the major problems with the retention is recently, because of the change in the total, the ethos and psychology that has changed due to lockdown and not being able to sit in. And when the lockdown has come down and where people were beginning to really have face-to-face meetings, the returns have reduced quite a bit, and quite a few members were lost because of that.
Sure.
So encouraging these kind of other types of meetings, like hybrid meetings or Zoom meetings, it is still a bit of a challenge in some of these clubs. So that is one major issue in actually retention, because in our club, we lost about 6 members because they just couldn't bother about Zoom.
Yeah, and it's not unique. And part of that is my own club, and I'm just going to be straight out and say it. We've had 3 or 4 different discussions over months about how we're going to meet in the future. Is it going to be online? Is it going to be Zoom? Is it going to be face-to-face? Is it going to be hybrid part, sometimes face-to-face? And it's difficult. But we've also got to think, when we're talking with the clubs about the future and newer members, and one of the things, I can't remember, let me see if I can get the words right. If you want to know what Rotary should look like and feel like, don't ask a Rotarian, ask a prospective member, and then see if we can modify the product that we offer to suit that as well. But while Carol still says we've got to recognise the past. We've got to recognise all the good work that's going on. What's your thoughts on that kind of thing, or anything else around the assembly?
With being a member also in these conditions, as also, cost comes into play as well.
Sure.
People do look at it as an expensive episode, especially when they can do same thing just by meeting online or Zoom,
Sure.
instead of paying for the meal money every month. That adds up quite a bit. So asking the prospective members, that's one of the things they would bring up. It'll cost them nearly £1,000 a year just to be a member in the club.
What I'll do after this, I got up 3 documents, as I said, one for year 1, one for year 2, one for year 3 AGs, and it covers all the syllabus that they were going to cover, and it includes the text of the slides they would have used. But they've got things in there, includes change management, for example, if a club wants to change, or if we can encourage them to change, it's how they go through that. There's a 6-step process in it for doing that. So, but I'll share that, and it's three documents. They're quite lengthy documents, but I just pulled out what I thought would help you a lot tonight. So, and so looking at club assemblies, you might just pick up a couple of things that are not quite right. So can we see that again? And I'll just share from the current slide. So this is what we talked of. District doesn't want long reports about the clubs. The time you write these up, they're a nightmare. Keep it simple. Is it sustainable? Does it need help? What's your view? What support do you need to help with the club so we can bring in the team leaders and pull them along? And does the plan seem credible so we can offer them support? Some of the things you might find, poor recruitment, aging membership. So there's a bunch of these, and I just pulled out some of them, what we could possibly look at for them. So if it's poor recruitment, is the club not attractive to prospective new members? And if you ask somebody, if you were a new Rotarian, would you join your club again? And I've actually heard the answer from some people says, no, I wouldn't. But with the knowledge that you'll have seeing other things, you can actually share some of the good practice that's happening. And, are you visible? Are you visible at community events? So Forest just this past weekend held a community showcase for voluntary organisations. We were quite selfish. We were there to recruit people, but we also created an environment for 20 other groups to do the same. And the same about aging membership. Would you get a 30-year-old into your club, into the club you're speaking about? So what can they change? Whether it's, do they actually need a meal? What if you've separated the business from the meal so that people who do like a regular meal can have it, but people who don't have the time or the £1,000 a year that goes with a meal don't need to do that. So I'm going to stop there and just stop sharing again. And so what other things do you think might come up that you could offer support with? There's a puzzled look in Vicky's face.
I'd be right in saying that generally the recruitment issue is the most obvious one that comes up. Is that from previous AG's experience?
I think I'll try and run a report for each of you, and I'll do it over 5 years so you can actually see what's happening in your area. Or I'll see if Kath will run it maybe. But I'll get that to you and I'll split it up in not by club, but I'll split it into your areas. Recruitment generally is not a problem in most clubs. Some clubs we know have difficulty, and if I singled out one of Carol's clubs in Keith, there's a big smile on her face. There's 5 of them, and what's their average age?
It's unfair. There's 7 of them.
Oh,
And it's been the same 7 for long before I came in as AG. And in fairness, actually, they've not quite got their numbers up yet. They're having a wee bit more of a chat about it. I've actually done some great things, but they've been static at that. The president's been there, I think, in the president's role for must be the best part of 7-8 years. Yeah. But he says himself, he's there in name because the team, but they are a very small team in terms of that bit of it. And yeah, we keep chipping away at them. We thought we'd almost lost them probably about 5-6 years ago, but they're still hanging on there. And for me, it's trying to get some of these clubs to be working together and actually help one another and hopefully help raise their awareness, their PI, and maybe get some recruitment on the back of that, because they'll be the smaller, quite often they can be the smaller. For me, those ones are the smaller towns that have the bigger challenges. But equally, some of the smaller ones are starting to see numbers growing up and increasing. Aberlour, I'd say, on the same basis, and I think that's, apologies, my dog's going mad down the stairs. She's obviously got an opinion on this as well. But yeah, they're getting it out because they're out and about and they're doing stuff, and I think that's what the trick is. No matter whether you're big or small, it's getting out and being seen.
I think, and I can't remember the numbers, Vicky, but about halfway through the year, half of our clubs had not recruited anyone during the year, but other half had. So it's possible, and that's what we're saying. If we can get a couple of clubs working together, so the two biggest recruiters are, and this is a memory test, I think it's the E Club of Aviation and Forth Bridges. But you should know the Forth Bridges, but I think you're up 5 new ones, I think, is it?
The new one last night.
Oh.
But I guess my concern is when you go to the club assembly and they're obviously going to ask, we've got an ageing club membership, how can we change that? And it comes up at all the meetings, and it's really, and that kind of, it gives me the fear to try and, you know, help them, and they're looking for help, but they maybe just don't want to hear, people don't want to pay £1,000, like Vivian said, you know. And are you quite brutally honest with them?
Yes.
You are? Okay. I wasn't
nicely.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, nicely.
Okay. I wasn't sure how honest you can be with them.
Yeah. But doing that, you can say, if you were to change X, Y, and Z, so what's suitable for your club?
Okay, so just word it very gently.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I go back, let me just find that slide again.
Vicky, sometimes the words, have you thought, have you considered, what are your thoughts on, just, and try and then get them to maybe say something whilst you're, so again, it's come from them as opposed to coming from us. It's not us telling them, but we're planting that sequence. So have you thought about alternative ways of, have you thought of how you could cut costs? Have you thought of different ways to do your meetings? Then that way you're facilitating them, but they're making the comment because then you didn't tell them.
This one here on the falling levels of project, conduct a health check survey. And we can offer that as an online tool, almost online. So I'll just stop sharing a minute. Let me find something here.
Well, while you're doing that, Ken, I was just a way to say that there's always the question to start with, as well as if they're saying we've got a problem with getting members, blah, 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 and so on. The question to start with is, well, what have you already tried?
Yeah.
And that will take away a lot of suggestions that you might come up with and save you wasting your breath. The clubs that are on an older level, like my own club, we've got an aging population that just want to sit and have lunch, but we also have all our new members are young people that can't do lunches. The Zoom really helped because it meant they could join in with the lunchtime stuff. So we're gradually shifting what we're doing into evenings, but we're still retaining the lunchtime part for the people that want the lunchtime link up. So it's about looking at the big picture and just seeing what you've already tried. And if the club hasn't tried anything, then that would be my worry, in that, are they really caring that much?
I'm just, I'm trying to find a document just for a second on health check. And district. No. So in the break, I'll find a document on health check, and I'll share it with you so that you can see the type of things the club will get out of it. And it's quite simple. It's a 15-minute questionnaire they do online, and then it's a 1 hour of feedback to the club, and then the club deciding how they can move forward. But it's very specific, and I'll show you what that is. I'll do that just right after the break. So I'll find that.
Who feeds back to them, Ken?
Whoever
district team.
No, whoever facilitates it. So we'll have a facilitator in it, and we would get people from the district team to help them. So they would have 2-3 different breakout rooms, perhaps depending on the number of people that were in that 1 hour session afterwards. And they would work in groups 5 or 6 people on how the club can move forward. And I'll show you a couple of what they get back out of the thing for them to decide a way forward. I'll put my screen back on. I've got one more to show till we just have a 5-minute break. So we said that obviously at the meeting with the, that was what we were on. So the next one was meeting with the presidents around the district assembly. We've put in a date that we need to just sort for yourselves, that you should be with your area presidents for next year, and sorting out, you know, how often do we want to meet, and what frequency. I remember sitting with the area 4 guys and said, so we're meant to be 4 times a year, what do you think? And they shut me down and said, no, we want 6. So that's fine. If they want 6, we'll do 6. And help plan club visits, listen to their concerns. So just quite a short session with them on their thoughts, and obviously feedback on the district assembly. So, and then the area presidents meetings, and we'll come on to the timing of these. And really the big thing is, what do they want to discuss? And I usually put out some, I'm running the area 4 one next week, so Alistair Walker can't make it. So I've actually asked them, what do you want to discuss in that? And concerns they want to raise, so they can have a structured discussion. So if they wanted membership or they wanted foundation, you can actually ask the team leader in. And the team leaders want and are willing to come along to the area presidents meetings. Obviously looking at any key events, opportunities for inter-club working. So the Aberdeen clubs do a big raffle that area 3, area 4 clubs, although it's a separate charity, but it's involving a lot of area 3, 4 clubs. And the car raffle at Christmas, it actually runs for 6 months. That key district messages that obviously we want to share back, and gathering information for the district support team. So really quite simple things. It's kept to an hour. Thoughts on that? And I'll stop sharing that, and we can have we'll have a 5-minute break.
I ask as well, with your district group, does anybody have WhatsApp groups between their area presidents? Is that how you communicate generally?
I did a WhatsApp group last year, Vicky. I didn't have one in year 1. And being, but for a lot of the guys, it will depend on the profile of your team. But I probably would still put my key messages out by email. But usually the WhatsApps go in, keep an eye on your inbox, guys, or here's the date for such and such, so that they're there. I tended to find, and again, I think it'll depend on the dynamic of the group, but certainly for the lot in Area 2 this year, it's been me giving them information. It's probably not really worked two ways, but I think, you know, equally, you'll get some of the guys who are responding really quickly on it and do work on it that way. So it'll be dependent on your own team, but definitely worth asking if it's a method that they would find quick and easy. And it's a good way for you to get something. So if you feel like you're maybe not always wanting to bombard them with emails, and you've got something just nice, short, wee reminder, a wee friendly, I think it's a slightly less friendly, slightly less formal. Sometimes just to remember me or
Yes, 'cause
whatever.
emails can get lost, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Although in fairness, I did have one club president who said, I didn't really read many of them, but if I do see your name coming in, Carla, do you read them? I went, it's the first then. He's the other one, I think, because I think some of the others will go, did you read that? And they'll go. So if you send them a WhatsApp and an email, you've done everything you can.
Yeah, and that's a really nice approach, Carol, because quite often if I ask District Secretary Kath how she's getting on, she says, well, I've not had any feedback. I'll ask the AGs to contact the clubs. And if you've got a WhatsApp group, that's a really fast way of you actually getting out to your presidents and getting the feedback quite quickly. And it saves a bunch of phone calls, perhaps, if that's there. So. And anything else on that, or we'll just take a 5-minute.
I guess one thought just went through my mind was that it may be that the club president wants the AG to ask some questions. So I guess just the thought about maybe speaking to the president beforehand and saying, is there anything you'd like me to ask them? And because it may be that they're sort of fighting the good fight, but maybe not quite getting it. But if somebody else asks the question, so I don't know from others that have done this before whether that works or whether there's a different way of doing that.
What do others think about that? There's people nodding for you, if that helps.
Many more questions.
Yeah, and part of that, Paul, can be when you're visiting the club itself. You can actually get one-on-one and do that and just deal with it. James, you wanted to.
Yeah, well, I was going back to the WhatsApp question. Is this something the AGs have to arrange themselves? Are they going to be the organisers of this? It's obviously, you know, come the end of the year, the presidents are going to change, and obviously.
So it would be set up. You would set that up with the presidents that are in your group for you.
Oh well, that's a new experience for me.
There you go. I believe you and Carol are sitting tomorrow, are you?
Sorry, say that again?
Are you and Carol sitting together tomorrow?
Yes. I'll tell you, if she thinks that she's just got an hour, she's in for a shock.
There you go. Okay, so you okay for a 5-minute break then? And so it's right on past. If we said 25 to,
Yeah.
I'll go and get myself a drink quickly. Maybe a glass of wine might be sensible.
Just a glass, dearie me, on a school night, dearie me.
A bottle's a glass.
All right, okay, well that's fair dues then. Right, I'll leave you to it. I'll see you in 5.
Okay. Sorted. So is this useful for you, James? Is this useful for you?
Sorry, are you speaking to me?
Yes.
What, the evening?
Yes.
Yes, it has been useful, yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So what did I just see you putting down, Paul?
Cheers, Ken.
Wait a minute, I like yours better.
How do you know it's not a pint of gin?
No, I was just saying, Praveen, it looks like a 2 fingers of malt or something, is it?
No, there's some water in it.
I don't know when the last time I had a drink of alcohol.
Oh dear.
Oh, we're not that bad, Vicky. I was just plugging us. I'm saying we're not that bad. You've got a face mask on.
Well, here's a laugh, let me show you. There's where I am.
Woo!
And I keep seeing my son just kind of dropping down randomly
Climbing
from
wall.
the
Brilliant.
roof.
Oh,
And just out of the corner of my eye, I see him going, whoo, and have a slight heart attack every time. Oh dear.
So I'm not going to wait for Jim or Brian. They'll join us in a second. So thanks for coming back. Oh, here we go. Brian's got his. Is that your holiday slide? Holiday pictures behind you?
No, that was from 2 years ago in New Zealand. I haven't got the Gran Canaria loaded up yet, but I'll do that just to annoy you for the next meeting.
So what I thought we would do in the second half was wanted to look at a scenario. And there's a bunch of them in the papers you'll get sent out, and there's support on them as well. What about 20 minutes or something in this, just as a thought. See what you think.
Sorry, I lost my cup of tea.
So have you got the slides up there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Take a break. So here's a scenario for a discussion. You can read this as much as I can, as quickly as I can. So
They're not moving, Ken.
I'm not moving them anyway.
Yeah, but it's still saying meeting with presidents that we're seeing.
Are you?
I haven't started the slideshow.
All right, so let's start again.
I'm glad you're getting all this ironed out before the assembly.
That's my Zoom thing. Where's this gone? For some reason, the PowerPoint is wanting to disappear on me.
Looks like you're currently looking down a big black hole, Ken.
Tell me. So stop sharing that. Come on. This is crazy. I'm going to turn off the PowerPoint, bring it back on again.
I mean, this is just that as technology has moved on, if you think about it, this is like when we used to get speakers to club meetings and the projector didn't work. This is like the modern day equivalent.
I know.
Isn't it? It's just these things always happen.
That's when the bulb used to blow an overhead projector and you were stuck.
Right, so is this showing now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I just need to get the right slide. Is that showing?
It
Yes.
is, yes.
Yay! So a few clubs don't think a lot of district. What on earth district about? Don't add any value. How are we going to build trust with our presidents and members? How can we communicate the benefits of working with clubs? And obviously the approach you can take, we can take when I visit, to make them feel confident about working. So maybe they don't give to foundation, or they just think they're a lunch club perhaps. I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully I can get it back again. But what's your thoughts on what we can do?
Would you tell them about all the international kind of projects we're involved in so they know more about the global efforts that Rotary can bring?
Sure, absolutely. And the benefit to the club and to international as well, involving members. What other people think?
One of the things that came up clearly across the MD PEPs was the misunderstanding or non-understanding of what the Rotary Foundation is. And I think that's something that we need to highlight, because obviously that's our main charity anyway. So I think we need to re-educate or let people know exactly what that is. And specifically, I think newer members.
Yeah.
Because I think the members that have been in clubs for a long time know what Rotary Foundation is, so they don't tend to talk about it. And I think it's just getting that message out there. Yeah. I'm not sure about how the Paul Harris Fellowships thing's going to work, with it automatically being given for monetary donations, which seems a bit strange, but I can understand that's the way that they do in other countries. But yeah, I think it's interesting.
It's quite interesting. Paul, I'm going to come back on to Paul Harris for a second. That's actually a recognition for people giving to foundation. That's how it started out. And I see that our ex-foundation leads nodding. And there is a proposal that we recognise people that's done that if they want the recognition. And that's something we'll bring up in this next year. I think a lot of people, a lot of Rotarians don't know Rotary. What's your thoughts on that? Don't know the broader Rotary. Is there something we can do about that as district? What could we do?
with that, Ken. I think it is that piece, and just coming along to sessions like this and some of the other ones, I've learned a lot. So I think there is that piece there, and I've been in Rotary for 20 years. So there's things there that you hear I've obviously forgotten, but yeah, going to district conferences or finding other ways. And I think as we're talking about the new hub type concept, talking to others, it's forced me to go and find out more and trying to put it into simple language. Sure. And then I think back to your quote about asking what Rotary is, asking somebody who isn't a Rotarian, that lots of new folk actually are really excited to be part of something bigger. And I think it's almost like how we can take that excitement and sort of actually re-energize ourselves.
What do other people think?
I think your knowledge of Rotary expands when you do have a period of being president. And I've never really been in a situation whereby I had to discuss or take on board anything to do with foundation. I have to admit to that, but being present, I knew what it was all about and the importance of the importance it is to Rotary. And I think if we can get the importance back to the clubs to have that in their as a project for the coming year for a donation, I think you've cracked it in some ways.
How many people here saw Bill Ross and Tony Ginetta present on foundation?
Yeah, they were brilliant.
Tony Ginetta to our club, was that just a fortnight ago? And because we've got so many new members, we hadn't really covered foundation, and they were so surprised, the new members, about how much Rotary International does and how the whole foundation and grant system works. So hopefully, yeah, that was an eye-opener for the new members. She was brilliant.
Good.
And actually, I'm just here thinking about it, Ken, and maybe when you asked the question about what could we do as a team, actually maybe getting an update or revisiting the update that I know Bill will do of what the district and global grants have been that have been awarded and how those have helped our communities at home and abroad. And maybe that's something that we need to have a wee bit in our armoury ahead of the club assembly, so that for those clubs that haven't been given, saying, well, look, if you're thinking about doing this kind of project, here's a way you can leverage some more money and tying it in that way. I've always been a great one about trying to tie it in, the giving with the projects, you know, chicken and egg, I know. But that's maybe something that we could maybe just get a refresher from Bill on, that might be helpful for just having that conversation.
And Bill's going to do a session on, so there's going to be, I think he's maybe done one of the sessions on grant management. He's another one to do, and he's also going to do one on foundation itself, with Brian, the incoming foundation, Brian Johnson, on that. So one of the things I was thinking about for new members was holding a forum of some kind regularly during the year, just for new members, and giving them a broader picture of Rotary. Would that be useful?
Is that in addition to, are you planning the monthly forum as you started it, Ken, and Ken obviously and Heather's continued it? Are you planning still doing that one, and this would be in addition for the new members?
Yes, something in addition for them. But I was certainly thinking of doing a monthly drop-in of some kind. And we just need to find the topics that are going to be useful, and that's where feedback from yourselves would be great. But here's the topics that we really need to be covering during, if we had a dozen drop-ins, for example. But the new members are thinking of doing it separately.
I was going to say, Ken, if you're doing the monthly drop-ins in the forums, we can point new members to them anyway. But I wouldn't go as far as doing 12. I would maybe space them a wee bit, potentially one a quarter, because that gives time for new members to come in and other bits and so on. And I just think a lot The new member stuff might be a little bit more repetitive than some of these other forums because you're wanting to cover the same sort of information each time.
No, it would be a kind of one-off type thing. The other thing I was thinking of, and we talked of before COVID hit us, was if we had face-to-face meetings, like face-to-face council or a face-to-face assembly, that we actually have a first half hour. So let's say the assembly started at 10 or the meeting started at 10. At 9:30, we'd invite the new members for a chat. Because quite often if they go to these things, they're not actually spoken to because they don't know anyone. And we actually get them together so they can meet each other and actually have some mutual contact as well.
I certainly think that's a good thing to do. It's a little bit nicer than having a badge that's either bright yellow or bright green or something else, or something stuck on their head, or they have to wear a different hat with ears on. I don't know, but it certainly it makes it a little bit easier to highlight who the new members are, and it might also encourage older members or members that have been there longer to actually talk to them.
Yeah. But what do others think?
I think the district leaders should be a bit more apparent. In the past, we haven't, who does this and who does that. It hasn't been apparent. For example, the shoebox chap, he could contact all the shoebox representatives from the different clubs who probably would not join into your monthly meeting as a general one, but might be interested in the shoebox chat.
So how would we do that, Celia?
Well, the district leaders and their team leaders contact all the clubs and say, right, we've got a Zoom meeting on shoeboxes or whatever on that date.
Okay.
And tell me who in your club who is responsible, because it might be just, in our club we've got one chap that's very busy. He's a lawyer, but he does shoeboxes and he doesn't do anything else. He would not come to your monthly meeting, but he'd probably join in to the shoebox meeting, get to know the district leader.
Okay. And how often would that be done, do you think?
At least once a year to start off with and then see.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good.
Can I show you something else, but for what we have done for new members?
Sure.
We have produced, I don't know whether you can see this,
Okay.
this card that we leave all over the place. And at the back, it is for new members. And we leave it at the primary school quiz and various different things.
Yeah.
And there is a QR code here.
Yeah.
And the QR code leads to a sway document that we've told them all about Rotary, all potential new members.
Mm-hmm.
That they can look it up, all what happens in Alloa, all what happens in district, all what happens in the wider world. And it's an ongoing document that we change.
Yeah, good. Good. Other thoughts on that?
I in the situation where there's 2 or 3 members in my own club who are very, very scathing about district, and it's really getting up my nose. But there's 2 perceptions. One is that the district team's completely unnecessary, and there's another one that district tells clubs what they can and cannot do. And I'm looking forward to get a slot in my own club to explain, this is the district team. And I do think some team leaders, it's obvious what they do. Like, for example, Ryla, the primary school quiz, if these people weren't there, these things wouldn't happen. So I think these are all blindingly obvious. And there's other things in terms of compliance that people don't have to do much, but if somebody in a club has a problem, they've got somebody to go and get advice from. I think the big issue is really what the AGs do, because I think that's what the perception coming to clubs is, that they get told what to do, they get watched and monitored and then told what not to do. And I think, from all of our contacts with clubs, we've got to build up that we're not telling them what to do. I was going to one of my Area 5 clubs, never comes to the area meetings, but I always write to them afterwards and they always send me a report of what they're doing. And that's fine. If they don't want to talk to the other presidents, that's absolutely okay. I'm not going to make them. And if they want to be left on their own, that's absolutely fine. But I think somehow we need to get it across that we're helping clubs. We're not telling them and stopping them or whatever. And as one of my members said, you know, district budget is all about district officers' expenses. So we managed to nail that one, that we hadn't had any for the past few years. And B, why should full-time Rotarians doing extra duties pay out their own pocket to travel to meet clubs? So there is a perception sitting there. Don't know where it comes from, but I think you're right. It does poison new members because they think, you know, there's something wrong about district. And we really, I think we need a big message from us in district to stop it. And, you know, in terms of trying to turn it around, it's examples of what we've done to help clubs. You know, examples where presidents have phoned us up on a problem and we've been the ones to help them. And if we weren't there, they wouldn't know what to do. Okay. So I'm looking forward to Praveen coming to my club and sorting all of this out next year.
After what you said, even I'm looking forward to it, Brian.
Just sidestepping it, Praveen. And that, you're right, Brian, that comes back to just thinking of the area presidents meeting. Ask what they want to discuss. Make it, let them know it's their meeting. You'll still get your own points across just quietly in the background of the other things that need to be covered, you know, and they actually won't even notice it if you've discussed what they want to discuss, whether it's membership or public image or whatever it is.
And I think there's a trick we can do as well, because we've now got that report structure to DST. So all the AGs really see the good practice in all the clubs across, you know, the whole district. That, and within areas, they hear each other talking about what they're doing. But we could put that DST report back to clubs to say, look, this is what's happening across the district. And we have brought together this document for you, you know, to give you ideas if you're stuck.
So I'm just going to share the screen again, if I can, if I'm competent in this. Have I got it? Yes, Ken, excellent. So here were some suggestions that came back from that's actually in that booklets I got up. Yeah, talk to them, do something for them, look for wins. And really we've discussed a lot of that. So, and we've all got our own style of doing that. But as you say, it's not a tell, we're here to help. The visioning our health check, I never got that health check thing, but I'll do it just in the next piece. So and
I think we have to be careful with suggesting health checks. It's all very good and it's a great idea, but quite often it will bounce back. It's about time district did a health check.
Yeah, and district actually did one.
But that hasn't been communicated. And it hasn't seemed to have changed.
It's not changed.
But that is what bounces back from clubs immediately.
Yeah, okay. Because we can actually put back in, I was looking at it recently to bring it back out again. And we've actually done quite a lot of what we said we would do. And a lot of it came out of communication, was being consistent in our communication and giving feedback when or answering things when we're asked, or if we can't do it immediately, just saying, look, I can't do it just now, but I'll come back to you by Friday or whenever it is. So at least people know you're listening. I had a really interesting thing with a client, and we were going through a long project, and we got to the end of stage one. We asked the client, you know, what had gone well, and he said communication is. What a relief. And we said, so what could we do better? Communication. So it's no matter how good we are, it's endless somehow. We talked about clubs for a second. What's the characteristics of a great club? I'm going to put something up on the screen, and it's not I'll give you a bit of it anyway. So here's just a quick questionnaire that clubs can answer. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 elements. And kind of points awarded, but sitting underneath it are various elements to say, if we looked at the consistent membership growth, 20 points. Or they change their clubs to reflect the needs of existing and prospective members. And at the bottom right, so clubs in decline or no motivation would have probably less than 25 points. Struggling clubs, 25 to 45, average, and then really top notch, 75 to 100. You can actually do this for your clubs, or the clubs can do it for themselves. So if you pick let's say the top 2 achieve consistent membership growth, what kind of things would we be looking at in there? Let's stop sharing that a second, and I'll put back up what some people think. But
When you say consistent membership growth, how far back period do you go?
Yeah, look, you can look back. It's simple to get the last 5 years, James, and just see what's been happening across the club. So that a 5-year report is available on Rotary Club Central for you.
Right. Okay.
So what kind of things would the clubs be doing if they were achieving consistent growth, do you think?
Well, as far as Inverness Culloden are concerned, we've been doing virtually the same program for many a year, and it's always proved successful annually. And hitherto that, you know, we always try to introduce at least one new project to well, just extend the viability of the club, really.
Okay, so and I don't know the answer to this, in case, and I hope it doesn't embarrass you. So what's the increase in membership?
As far as Inverness Culloden's gone, virtually nil. But we've got the problem. We are beginning to be an aging club through, and I've said this often enough that no matter what we do and what we put on Facebook and how many likes on that, we don't get any people coming forward.
So what other people think about achieving consistent growth? What might the clubs be doing? See,
I would say that certainly our new members have come from actually doing projects.
Yep.
Being hands-on is
Yep.
where we get them being visual in the community, and then them asking us. We're not chasing them, they've come to us, or they've been involved in marshalling or doing something hands-on, and then they've asked to join. So community events, basically.
That's what Beth will do, out in the community and visible in the community. What other things would clubs be doing?
I think some are very good at maximising their events as well. I'm probably thinking here East Sutherland and their connections with using their Rota Kids interactors, so that they're promoting Rotary at public, just because it's topical, primary school quizzes, etc., that kind of thing. Just being good on their PI and selling something that folk are interested in, and probably leading either to or from, as Vicky says, from projects themselves, but something's just making the most of a Rotary event.
I actually saw an email yesterday from Alistair Risk in East Sutherland, quite interestingly. He got mentioned from the Brora pulpit on Sunday for his sleep out all last week, and he raised £4,000.
£4,000, yeah.
Yeah. But the minister stood up in the pulpit and said they were talking about Ukraine, talking about other things in our sermon. So what he did, though, is he sent the link for the whole sermon. So you actually had to listen to all to find out where Risk was mentioned. So. What else could clubs be doing? or that would be doing that is achieving consistent membership?
There's one club in Northeast, I think it's Montrose, they have increased their membership by doing this Friends of Rotary
Mm-hmm.
thing. This is similar to what Vicky suggested, involving the public
Mm-hmm.
from the community to get involved in their local Rotary project as
Sure.
Friends of Rotary, and then eventually they'll become hopefully become prospective members.
Yeah. And
That's what and the other thing is that, like Carol said, we extended our Santa Sleigh run into Carnoustie, where the Carnoustie Rotary Club had closed, it's disbanded.
yeah.
So we were there, and when we went there, the response that we had from the public was really overwhelming. I mean, it was breathtaking, and a number of people who expressed interest and asked about our club was quite a lot. I mean, it hasn't produced any members yet, but it just definitely generated interest.
Yeah.
in
So
Rotary.
we can maybe get a satellite in Carnoustie then, could we?
I suppose we could, yes.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Excellent.
It's work in progress.
Just music to Brian's ears at the moment. So, what about the one on what was the other one? The club's changing to reflect the needs of existing and prospective members. What kind of things could they be doing?
But at the moment, actually, and I could probably list a few things that we've been doing for our club. First thing is that we've reduced the formal meetings
Mm-hmm.
of every week to fortnightly,
Mm-hmm.
interspersed with fellowship meetings.
Sure.
Tomorrow, instead of having a formal meeting, we are all meeting in a pub for a drink.
Mm-hmm.
6:30. So that way, it has cut down the formal meal meetings by 50%.
Okay.
And that has encouraged few members, particularly those who are actually still working and are busy, are able to come for this kind of fellowship meetings
Sure.
instead of coming at 6 o'clock. So, and that seems to have encouraged some interest in
Good.
the others as well to come along.
What else?
Can I ask, when you say you meet in a pub, do you get a room or somewhere where you can all gather, or do you mix with the other people in the bar?
I mean, fortunately, we are have some couple of pubs here which have got nice, good function suites as well, where they're happy to serve us there in that room.
Right.
So what else could we do?
Certainly being flexible makes a big difference with younger members. A lot of our members are parents, and
Yeah.
so they zoom in from the side of a football pitch, a rugby pitch, and we always say, just join if you can, do what you can when you can, be involved when you can, but there's no pressure either to come to meetings or just be more hands-on in a project when they've got time. Because time is short with younger people, seems to be.
Okay. Let me just share back then what the feedback we got was. I think it's this one. So just on those couple of points, people know the growth trends, they know what's happening, and they work towards it. The big thing is, as Vicky says, people are attracted by what you're doing as projects, mentoring, and there's a whole piece on mentoring, and Alistair Robb's working on some mentoring information just to share with everybody. And they use innovative and flexible approaches to encourage active membership. What on earth does that mean? What do you think that means? And the member surveys is the other thing. There's surveys available to ask people, and you can generate your own. And the membership mirrors what the community is. but evidence of action that we're going to meet the needs of members, what the members want, and do something about it. I'm just going to stop that sharing. What's thoughts? Anything in there that's missing, surprising?
Not missing or surprising, but just I suppose a follow on from what you said there and what we were talking about earlier on, the maintenance, like when you were talking about the sessions perhaps for the newer members, Ken, have we got a timeline at all for the mentoring? I remember that being talked about at one point previously, but I know a lot of the clubs have got some form of mentoring themselves, but the district led aspect, where are we with that?
Alistair Robb, he's been struggling to get Facebook to accept him putting it on there as a thing. So we're actually trying to get it on the district website at the moment.
Right.
So that's more or less ready there. So there's a few membership tools Alistair's got.
That would be good, I think, because again, I think that would be one of the things if we're able to go to the club assemblies with that ammunition in our pocket, shall we say, that, you know, again, how can we help? So coming back to what Celia was saying earlier on about how to, you know, what does district do in terms of sort of showing what we're now about as opposed to what people think we're about, would be good. I think that's probably one of the good ways of being able to show how we're ready to support folks.
Okay, well, we'll pick that one up. I've got a note of that. I said I would come back to one of the things that talked on there was, it used to be visioning, which looks out 5 years, but a lot of clubs really need to look at where they are today. And I take Celia's point about, not all clubs will want to do a health check for sure. Here's one that was done, and here's what a typical output is. Who here has been through a health check, out of curiosity? Celia has. Okay, 2, 3. And was that the paper face-to-face kind of version? Yeah, okay. So the online one, kind of looks like this. So that it looks at 5 areas, and I'll just take us up in size. Looks at 5 areas: club experience, how does it come to you? Service and social support, what are you doing? How they look after members, what the public image is, and how they run their business. And these are actual results from a club. There's actually Chelwood Bridge, which is far enough away that I don't need to anonymize it, unless it's somebody's got their cousin in Chelwood Bridge or something. So the key area, obviously, they need to look at is membership, quickly followed by business and operations. This is actually a 70%, a very good score. And the members scored at 84%. But so there's 20 people responded, but respondent number 8, and the club didn't know who respondent number 8 was, only gave them 24 out of 70. So the maximum score is 70 in this. But if they went down it and looked at the individual elements, if we looked at club experience, there's 15 questions. They could see, yeah, that worked okay. And if I went down to members, which we know, so these are the questions that are in it and how the club scored. So out of the 20 respondents, 2 of them said, you know, they had a net increase, which was interesting because 18 didn't. But the good ones, which were in green, guests are asked to introduce themselves, 75% are involved in a project. They retain 90%. So it's quite obvious which areas they should be focusing on. And each of the elements, if I look down at the next one, so here's what they scored for members individually. So number 8, again, scored them 1 out of 17. But, you know, on average, it was around here. Now, 8 could have been a new member. We don't know. And the club doesn't know who respondent number 8 was. But whoever's respondent number 8 in this one is also respondent number 8 in the next bit, an image, and also in the business and operations bit. So it's very easy in business or operations. You know, they don't ask their members for a satisfaction survey each year. Now, that's simple things to fix for a club. Let me stop sharing that. So that's the type of thing that an online the online questionnaire, that results take after the people have done their 15 minutes, and it's simple yes, no questions. Do we do it? Do we not? That takes less than 15 minutes to produce that lot, because we've got templates, and then it's an hour after. So if clubs want to do that and it's interesting, it's really simple to do. And we actually developed that in this district. And even though we did Chelwood Bridge, we've trained people in Chelwood Bridge on how to do that. So what's next? Back up our slides. So the big thing, but we're not too bad now.
And I was just going to ask, just might it be helpful for us to have that kind of that idea of from that club about actually sort of so to actually be able to show the clubs what kind of output they would get?
Easily get, and I can give you an anonymized one.
Yeah, we just got a dummy one and just sort of said, you know, this is the if folks were saying not really sure, I don't think it's for us, and a lot of clubs will doing something will adapt it themselves, but
Yeah.
actually might just give us something that's an idea, because you know it's easier to say, because a lot of folk will go, well, you know, we did visioning and we didn't change much, and that's much more direct.
The other thing with that, in the visioning, AGs weren't allowed to go back. They were actually, it was part of the process that the clubs got on with it. One of the things I've built in, and there's PowerPoint templates for sharing with the clubs and sharing this and sharing that. There's Word templates. It's all there, and that's why we can do it so quickly. But one of the things we do in the second feedback one, the 1 hour session, is we will be back in 3 months, just to be the nag on the shoulder to say, how are you getting on with this? But it's the clubs that decide what they're going to do, and obviously the facilitators are the people that know. How do I put it? It's know what good looks like, in case the clubs don't. So without telling them what to do, but they can, as we've said earlier, we can coach them and have you tried this? Could this work, or whatever? Does that make sense? Yeah. I'll share the screen again. So in case it's all, we're all doomed. No, we're not. Just imagine what we can do going forward, and look forward to where we are or where we can be. There we're going. So here's some dates around assembly that were just about got finalised. So obviously the green is April. We've got district assembly on the 24th, and we've now got the programme pretty well finalised for the assembly. We're good. So tomorrow night, Bill's running a grant management seminar for the presidents-elect that didn't manage to get the PEPs. We're running a presidents-elect catch-up, and then, you know, running public image, youth membership. Suggested a date the 2nd of May for AGs with their presidents. I've said presidents-elect. If that date works, maybe we could set up a series, or you could set up dates around there for presidents to join your Zoom, and make that work together. So these dates are going into Vision. So tomorrow I've got to write up that note for Vision tomorrow, and Kath's also going to send out a now hear this notice to all the clubs, because we reckon about 50% of our members actually read Vision, actually open the Vision, which is actually quite good for something that's circulated on a regular basis, but disappointing nonetheless. And then the dates for next year, which I think was Appendix C that I missed, and my apologies and congratulations to people that spotted my mistake. So in the new Rotary year, the suggestion is meet your presidents on the 2nd of May, but we can talk about that in a second. Continuity group affects you. District support team is a key thing. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 district support teams I've put in blue. And the suggestion and the recommendation is the area presidents meetings are held about 4 weeks before that, so that you can have the information for the district support team report. And Kath's got a standard report format to make it easy. We don't want War and Peace on they did a coffee morning on Friday and 25 people attended. It's more around how we can share things, what's coming up, key differences, lessons that can be shared. And then expected date for Warwick next year, dates for DOTS and PEPs for next year, and the district council dates 25th September and the 25th of March. And
Ken, can I just interrupt there? The date for DOTS is in the middle of PEPs, so I don't think that'll happen. Unless that's supposed to be February.
I'm going to ask, maybe I put it down wrong. Jim, can you check that for us? Not just now, but can you check after and we'll get that date sorted? Is Jim Hatter on? I'll check that with Jim Hatter. I think DOTS might be February.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'll check those dates.
Okay.
I'm sure they were the dates.
But we can't have DOTS in the middle of PEPs.
Yeah.
We'll check a date. Well spotted. And if anybody's interested in the convention in Melbourne, that's the 27th to 31st of May. And district conference next year will be the 10th of June. And I've just verified that that won't be the same as Elgin's extravaganza, whatever it's going to be next year.
Yeah, as long as you stay away for the first weekend in June, that's Elgin's, whatever it is every year.
Okay. So there's dates, and these are all going to be going into the vision and will come out as well, but we'll get you these slides and we'll check that. In terms of support available, a lot of you know a lot of this already. Huge amount available for you, as well as the rest, of course, the district team. So if we looked at the people it's available to support, all sitting there. And really, it's just if there are any questions in the last 5-10 minutes. Anything we've missed, anything we've not covered, anything that it would be really helpful if.
Just can I missed the point in terms of that bit of it, Ken. So the 2nd of May date that you had, so is that the suggested date that we all have the meetings with our incoming presidents? Is that?
We'll need to sort the Zoom licenses because we don't have enough Zoom licenses to do it all at the same time, Carol.
Well, that's why I was thinking. Wait a minute, I've lost a plot somewhere along the line. Right, that's okay.
So we just need to confirm it's going to be around that date.
So as long as we've got a date, I'm also just conscious. I know it doesn't affect many people, but that's also the May Day bank holiday, which actually a lot of folk. It's one of the few bank holidays that people, you know, that the wider community probably takes, and that's what was kind of going. That seems a bit familiar. So as long as I know it's sort of around and about that. So what we're saying is we're looking at within the week either side of the 2nd of May is kind of the window ideally for president-elect.
Yeah, so it's after assembly, right, but before club assemblies, so that you know the incoming presidents are set up for their own assemblies as well.
Okay. Okay.
So James asked about the Zoom thing. So I think, was that this thing, James?
Yes.
So let me just come down to it on this. So what we've got are 4 Zoom accounts. And what we're suggesting, and we've managed with that this past year, that we share it amongst all the district team. So the suggestion is that account number 1 is AG 1, 2, 3 and 4 foundation and the governor nominee. And the login for that on Zoom is that Zoom 1 Rotary 1010, and the password is 1010ZO0M1 for it. So that AG's 1, 2, 3, 4 foundation DGN, 6 people can share that account, and I don't believe there were any conflicts. If there are conflicts, there are 3 other accounts, and we just need to speak to others. When you book a meeting on Zoom, you can see that there's something already booked. And we can easily go through that with you one-on-one, James, for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So we can go through that one-on-one and just show you how all that works.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So there are 4 accounts now. Beyond that, I've also got an account above that, and if we need to, we can use mine as well. So mine gets fairly well used at the moment, as you can imagine. Anything else to cover?
Just in terms of the handing over to the new AGs and the new areas, Ken. So basically, we're looking at club assemblies, and those meetings with the incoming presidents would be the current AG with the new AG.
Yes. So there's find out about from the current AG at the assembly with the presidents-elect for next year, and then for the current presidents, obviously, to the new presidents, the handover is the 1st of July.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's really just club assemblies.
Yeah.
Well, 2 AGs will need to be there.
Doesn't need to be 2 AGs. If you're comfortable on your own, that's fine as well.
Yep.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
Why did they say those dates in 23 was wrong?
Because dots and peps are the same days. And unless I've written it down wrong on that sheet, Jim.
Well, according to what you had up there, dots was the 4th and 10th.
10th of March, yeah.
4th and 10th of March. Ah.
No, 4th and 10th of February.
That's what I thought. That's why I was questioning. I thought
I'd written down. I'd transposed it as March for some reason.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Happy
Okay.
man. Don't have to be in 2 places.
So
Correct.
okay, there you go. So it's 4th and 10th of Feb for dots, and then obviously the Warwick weekend's the weekend after the 10th.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll change that in the slides before I share the slides with you.
Is the weather going to be better next year for Warwick?
Although I must admit, I did enjoy the WhatsApp.
Yes.
I just think in Warwick, the mention of Warwick brings on snow. And I opened my curtains this morning and thought, there's an inch of snow in the group. Well, there wasn't an inch of snow at that point in time, but I saw that snow and I thought, last time I had this much snow, A, I was on holiday, and B, there was a Rotary meeting that mentioned Warwick. So I reckon that's the 2 things that are bringing on the snow.
For me,
cancelling my holidays.
and for me, it reminds me of the great railway journey that I had.
Not as much as I had.
You'll both be able to write a book about it in the future.
I think I've seen corners in the UK I didn't know existed. And anything else? If not, then thank you very much indeed for coming along. I hope it was useful. Thanks for all the interaction. It certainly makes it a lot easier.
Just a small reminder to you all to remember the push conference as well, because it will be face-to-face. So I'm going to try and get that hyped up over the next month. Yeah. And we'll have a bit more information drip-fed out now that potentially we're coming out of COVID. So fingers crossed.
James.
Ken, once you get your slides through to us, once we have a look at it, there may be other questions to ask over it. Is it okay to come back to yourself?
Absolutely. No issue at all. More than happy.
That's fine, thank you.
Yep, more than happy. Anything at all, doors open, phones on, so whatever's needed. Then thanks very much. Safe journey back to your couch, as we say. Or not in Vicky's case.
See you all later.
Right.
Bye.
Cat
Good night.
just signed off the
Bye,
wall.
everybody. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.